good idea fairy is a part of us that was born when we were very, very young. The good idea fairy stimulates creative ideas and gives creative ideas like fairy dust. Unapologetically expressive in ourselves, we listened unapologetically to this good idea fairy, and then we started growing older and we shove her aside because fear starts to have a bigger seat at the table. The conditions that we start being conditioned into of social equity, the good idea fairy is still with you. But if you don't listen, that voice that she uses to talk to you with, it gets quieter and quieter. It gets weaker and weaker. We have to go and repair this relationship with this part of us and reignite her and allow her to know that we trust her. We trust her little breadcrumbs. We trust her ideas.
But you're awakening already, right? It's already happening. That's why you're here and why you're listening.
Nothing is broken in your world. Nothing needs to be changed. Nothing needs to be different. And yet everything is constantly changing because it is the inevitable nature of that which is eternal.
What I've come to realize in this endless searching for answers is that there really are none.
If you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, then what do you have? You have an act, right? Instead of a life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Figuring Shit Out. My name is Vanessa Fontana. I'm your host, and if you're new here, Figuring Shit Out is a space for brave, intentional, courageous living in a world of flux. It is meant to help you deepen into what you have figured out, courageously claiming it. It is meant to help you navigate the confusion around what you haven't figured out, and it's meant to help you surrender to the things that you might not ever figure out. Today's episode is going to be a punctuation to the conversation we've been having over the last couple of weeks. I have been doing a series called the Perfectionist Diaries. And now, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I haven't listened to the first 2 episodes, that's totally fine. You don't have to listen to them in order. They do kind of build off of each other, but if this episode called you and you haven't listened to the other ones, no stress, no worry. The Perfectionist Diaries came to be because I was starting to realize in my life where perfectionism was choking me, having me in a freeze state, and where it infiltrates so many of our creative intentions, so many of our desires, and causes us to just be stuck. And in the last several weeks, I've had conversations with so many of my friends, these beautiful and radiant, intelligent, more than capable women who are struggling with self-doubt. And when I hear that they are struggling with self-doubt, I look at them and I go, oh my God, no way. Like, I believe in you so much. I know that you are so capable. Then I hear them say the exact same thing to me when I share the things that I'm struggling with and the self-doubt that I might have. And it's just this moment of realizing that fear is this itty bitty thing that we actually make so big. We give it a seat at the table and we let it stop us, freeze us, corrupt us into thinking that we're not enough. And the Perfectionist Diaries is a 3-chapter series to help orient you into taking the action from a place of wholeness, realizing your worth, reclaiming your sense of possibility and creativity, and acknowledging that the dreams, ideas, and the breadcrumbs that are laid out for you to follow are a necessary part of your path. Your creativity is an essential part of who you are, and a big underpillar of figuring shit out is helping you to reclaim that, to own that, to be deeply connected to it in a way that brings you the utmost peace in this life. So chapter 1 was all about re-recognizing your worth and re-recognizing the sanctity of your ideas. Chapter 1 discussed how perfectionism keeps us locked and stuck because we think that we need to have the next 10 steps laid out for us, when really it's just about taking the next aligned step. And so much of this has to do with the balance of energies within us, which is what chapter 2 was about. We've all heard the saying, make it exist, then make it good. But how? What if you feel so frozen that you make it exist and then you try to make it good, but the whole process just feels so wrapped up with this sense of urgency that you can't even do that? That was what chapter 2 was about. It was about understanding that in creation, in the ideas that we're birthing into the world, there is a masculine element of it, and then there is a feminine element of it. And many of us only approach it from one lens. The masculine creates the structure so that the feminine can refine it. The masculine is the structure through which the feminine flows in. And that episode was an entire discussion about how creativity, in and of itself, while we look at it as something that can be a bit more feminine, has these interplay of energies that we must learn how to harness within ourselves in order to take action. So, chapter 3, the punctuation on all of this is going to be about 3 things specifically. The first one is a character in all of us that I want to talk about, something that I created to understand a little bit more about these ideas that we get and personify this part of us so that we can have a better relationship with them, called the Good Idea Fairy. I've talked a little bit about it on the podcast, but this episode is primarily going to be an ode to the Good Idea Fairy. 2 is detachment from the outcome and the active devotion within your creative process. And then it's going to touch on some news that I have to share that I'm really, really excited about. A little story of how I'm doing this in my own life at the end of the episode. So let's get into it by first introducing this part of us that I like to call the Good Idea Fairy. Now, the Good Idea Fairy is a part of us that was born when we were very, very young. The Good Idea Fairy existed when we were little children. If you think about this part of you that was unapologetically expressive in childhood, this part of you that loved to color or loved to dance or loved to do cartwheels in the front lawn and make your parents watch you, this part of you that would really just create for the sake of creating and was always finding themselves busy with the next creative act. That part of you is deeply connected to the Good Idea Fairy. The Good Idea Fairy is a part of us that stimulates creative ideas and gives creative ideas like fairy dust. The Good Idea Fairy also drops fairy dust in terms of intuitions that we should listen to about people. The Good Idea Fairy is the one who will whisper in your ear and tell you to go call that friend you haven't talked to in a while. And maybe at the same time that the Good Idea Fairy is telling you that, you haven't talked to that good friend in a while, you're also struggling to understand how to act on a project you haven't taken action on, how to start that podcast, where to begin with writing that book. And so the Good Idea Fairy is going to lay out a few breadcrumbs for you to gain inspiration, to find yourself in the room talking to someone who has the solution for the thing that you're struggling with. The Good Idea Fairy exists to help you really understand how to bring the ideas that have chosen you into life. The Good Idea Fairy has been with you since you were just a child, learning to laugh, play, and express. Unapologetically expressive in ourselves. We listened unapologetically to this Good Idea Fairy, and then we started growing older. The Good Idea Fairy is still with you, but she might be just really mad that she has not had a seat at the table in a long time. See, what happens is we grow up and then we stop listening to the Good Idea Fairy. The Good Idea Fairy says, hey, why don't you write a song? Hey, why don't you write that poem that you wanted to write? Hey, I think it'd be really cool to audition for that play. And we shove her aside because fear starts to have a bigger seat at the table. The way that we appear in society, the fear of being misunderstood by others in society, the conditions that we start being conditioned into of social equity. This Good Idea Fairy, she is there for you. She is living within you, waiting. But, she collects all this fairy dust and she falls asleep because you're not listening to her. And she also is not neutral. This Good Idea Fairy, while she loves you, she fuels off of your creative energy. She fuels off of your joy. She fuels off of that little spark within you that gets lit. That is her nourishment. And so if you have been lost in trying to understand how to execute an idea and analyzing all of your feelings and being so wrapped up into your head, the Good Idea Fairy is probably laying dormant inside of your heart, starving and probably a little upset at you because you haven't listened to her. 3 years ago, she may have given you an idea for a podcast or a book, and then you see that same podcast or that same book out in the world, and of course, because ideas want to be created. We talked about this in chapter 1. And the good idea fairy is sad and she's angry. And so she has stopped giving you good ideas. Every now and then, she might have just a little bit of courage to stay alive and give you a little bit of a nudge, a little bit of a breadcrumb to the thing that will ignite your spark and bring you closer to your divine purpose. But if you don't listen, that voice that she uses to talk to you with, it gets quieter and quieter. It gets weaker and weaker. And so we all have this good idea fairy inside of us, and we all have a complicated relationship with her because as we grow up and as we really internalize these ideas that we're not good enough, the good idea fairy, she just stops being listened to. And so we have to repair our relationship with the good idea fairy, okay? We have to tell her that she matters. We have to tell her that she deserves a seat at the table, more of a seat at the table than our fear does. We have to go and repair this relationship with this part of us that is dressed in glitter and gold. At least that's what mine looks like. And reignite her and allow her to know that we trust her. We trust her little breadcrumbs. We trust her ideas. And her ideas often might seem to you now in your adult life as futile, like wastes of time. Oh, I can't go for a walk right now. I have so much to do. Even though it's sunny and beautiful and the birds are chirping, I really don't want to go for a walk. She gets sad. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to that friend in a long time, but because I haven't talked to that friend in a long time, we're probably gonna be on the phone for 2 hours, and I just don't have the time and space for that. I feel like I should call them, but I'll get around to it later. She gets sad. Oh, you know what? It would be really fun to just go to the park today and swing on the swings, but God, I'm like 25 and I really don't think that that's appropriate. And what if someone sees me? And you know what? I should probably just stay inside. She gets sad. The good idea fairy is nudging you, urging you at all times to listen to her. And you used to. She misses you. She is there waiting for you. And in order to repair your relationship with her, you have to go back into that corner of your heart and tell her, hey, I'm going to listen to you. And then she's going to test you. Okay. When you were young, she gave you ideas that were childlike, and she still might because that part of you needs to be nourished. Your inner child needs time to play. But your good idea fairy will now give you good ideas for that business that might just change your life. Your good idea fairy might just give you ideas for what event to go to, or the fact that you need to go do this thing, even if it feels a little scary. The risk of listening to the good idea fairy is always the fear. As children, we didn't have as much fear. We didn't care as much. When we started internalizing the ideas of the world, that fear grew. That fear grew really, really loud. And so we have to go repair our relationship with the good idea fairy. So, a practice for this, okay? First things first, get connected to this good idea fairy. A way to get connected with this good idea fairy is by writing them out, drawing them out, letting them live. Tell a story about your good idea fairy. Let your good idea fairy be reawakened with whatever creative idea you have to reawaken her. And then I want you to ask yourself, at what point did I stop listening to my good idea fairy? And what does she think about that? How was she hurt? What do I need to say to her? What does she need to hear in order to know that I want to make our relationship better? And then I want you to ask her, what is the next good idea that I should listen to? After you have excavated this part of you, I've also created a meditation for the good idea fairy that you can listen to. And this meditation is going to take you deep into that part of you. It'd be a really good way to start this ritual out. You can purchase it for $7.77. And it's a great way to really create this ritual of safety with yourself and recreate this sense of possibility that the good idea fairy gives you. So you're going to do that meditation, or you're going to do some meditation that connects you with your childlike sense of play or joy. And then you're going to write about your good idea fairy. You're going to go through the process of excavating her, asking her what she needs to hear. And then you're going to ask her, what is the next good idea? And you're going to listen, and it's going to come. Trust that it's going to come. You know it because she lives inside of you and she is a part of you. And then you're going to follow it, or you're going to put it on your schedule to follow it. If you can't do it right in this moment, you're going to put it on your schedule to follow it. The good idea fairy wants to love you and give you good ideas. She wants to. She wants to so bad, but you have to listen to her. And she is such a deep, beautiful part of you. And the more that you listen to her, the more fun you have with her. moving on to the second part of this episode, which is detachment from the outcome. The good idea fairy really requires that you have a detachment from the outcome, because the good idea fairy is not giving you ideas so that anything. She's not giving you good ideas so that you can do this and this and this and this, and so that you can achieve this and this and this and this. She doesn't care about any of that. The good idea fairy just wants you to act because she is a portal of alignment for you. And so when you act in your portal of alignment, your alignment can keep growing, you can keep expanding. And yes, as a consequence of that, you just might get everything you want. You just might achieve all the success, but it cannot be about that, because whatever part of you is after the success and the numbers and the analytics is not the good idea fairy. That is the very worldly, egoic part of you that probably wants those things for the validation that they give you. And so it's not a bad thing to want success. It's not a bad thing to want to achieve things, but the reason is always, why are you doing it? And if you are wanting to live a creative, courageous, intentional life, we always have to ask ourselves that question. We always have to question our intentions, our motives. And the best way to stay connected and grounded and rooted into authenticity and integrity is by connecting to that good idea fairy and connecting to whatever divine source you believe in is actually giving you these possibilities, these dreams. And so I want to read a passage from The Artist's Way, one of my favorite books of all time. This book has inspired so much for me, and it has connected me deeply to my good idea fairy. All of the notes that I have in it are falling out. This is just my book, but my morning pages that I got alongside The Artist's Way also look a little crazy. I'll show you what's in it. There's a photo of me as a child, and I have a backpack on that says princess. If you're watching the video, you'll see it. If you're not watching the video, you should watch the video and you should look at this picture because it's really cute. And it's in my Artist's Way journal, or in my Artist's Way book, which I haven't excavated in a few months, but I'm excavating now for a reason I will share at the end of this podcast episode. But as you can see, I have annotated a lot of this. I have a bookmark in it that my friend gave to me, and it's a bookmark that has princesses on it, because that reminds me of my inner child and my inner artist. I have talked about The Artist's Way many times, but if you don't know what The Artist's Way is, The Artist's Way is a 12-week course on creativity, and it helps you to re-excavate the creative part of you and essentially see yourself as an artist. We are all artists. We are all creatives. And if you've been following me for some time, you know that that is an idea that I embrace with my whole chest. The reason that I embrace it is because of this book. This book has changed my life. I did it at the beginning of 2024. And at the same time I was doing The Artist's Way, I was also training for a marathon. And I ran that marathon in Paris. It was amazing. I've talked about that many times before. If you're a frequent listener, you know that I will die on the hill talking about running that marathon, because it was like the best thing I ever did in my whole life was accomplish that feat. But basically, I did The Artist's Way. I trained for a marathon. I ran a marathon. And then I had this deep awakening that I needed to quit my job and pursue a creative life, that I am not meant to be in a box. And so during this 3-month period, I excavated my inner artist, my inner child, and I healed this part of me. I did all of these beautiful creative things that I just never would have done otherwise. I went to an improv class. I went to dance classes. I made music videos, all for fun, all for fun. And it was just the most truly healing 3 months of my life. And I did this book with my partner, and it was something that for the both of us really like awakened a deep part of us. And I really recommend doing it with someone. I am going to be holding an Artist's Way circle eventually. I don't know exactly when. I had planned to do it a few months ago, and then things just got a little crazy and I didn't, but maybe I will, because maybe I'll get some advice on how to do it when I share with you the news at the end of this episode. Maybe I'll get some advice on how to do it. So stay tuned for why I might get some advice on how to do it. Wink, wink, wink. But that was my 101 on The Artist's Way. I love this book. It changed my absolute life. It will change your life. Please, if you start it, finish it. I know so many people who have started it and they haven't finished it. And I think it's probably because they haven't been ready. But I think it's also because when you're doing this, subconscious fears and limitations will arise in you. Warning, they will arise in you and they will get you to stop doing it. So that's why I think it's really important that you do it in a community or you do it with someone, because this book will excavate the deepest parts of yourself. And if you do not have someone holding you accountable, the chances are you're not going to finish it. You're not going to continue on. But when I tell you that this book is the reason I am here today, doing what I am doing now, it is. So, without further ado, let me read something from it that connects to allowing this flow to come through you and communicating with it. I also want to say before I read this that the good idea fairy is really just another theory that is within the realm of creativity and spirituality work, that ideas are divine blessings that we must listen to and that breadcrumbs are laid out for us to follow. It's something that Julia Cameron talks about a lot. There is an entire week on synchronicity, seeing the synchronicity in your life. And instead of the good idea fairy, Julia Cameron discusses this idea of God, but not in the religious sense. What she says God is good, orderly direction because it is the part of you that whispers. It is essentially another way of saying the good idea fairy. I've just come up with this image of the good idea fairy because it's really, really helped me to visualize this part of me and kind of make it fun and make it playful and allow that part of me to have more of a spot at the table when I can just see it as a little fairy with gold and fairy dust who actually also should be taken very seriously. So without further ado, let me read something from The Artist's Way. She says, I recently had a woman artist tell me that she got a new and excellent agent by using affirmations. Even after years of artistic recovery, I still have my cynical side that says, It is as though we want to believe God can create the subatomic structure, but is clueless when faced with how to aid or fix our painting, sculpture, writing, or film. I recognize that many will balk at the simplicity of this concept. I want to sound a cautionary note here for all artists who put their creative lives into solely human hands. This can block your good. The desire to be worldly, sophisticated, and smart often blocks our flow. We have ideas and opinions about where our good should come from. As a Hollywood screenwriter, I had many rueful conversations with other screenwriters about the fact that while our agents were often invaluable, we seemed to get an awful lot of breaks from places like my next door neighbor, my dentist's brother, or somebody my wife went to college with. Those breaks are God, the source, in action. I've said before that creativity is a spiritual issue. Any progress is made by leaps of faith, some small and some large. At first, we may want faith to take the first dance class, the first step towards learning a new medium. Later, we may want the faith and the funds for further classes, seminars, a year's sabbatical. We may conceive an idea for a book. As each idea comes to us, we must, in good faith, clear away our own inner barriers to acting on it, and then on an outer level, take the concrete steps necessary to trigger our synchronous good. If this still sounds airy-fairy to you, ask yourself bluntly what next step you are evading. What dream are you discounting as impossible given your resources? What payoff are you getting for remaining stuck at this point in your expansion? So in those passages, Julia talks about this internal guide, this sense of deeper knowing within us, and what happens when we start to listen to that part of us. And when you follow those breadcrumbs, you don't know what's to happen next. We can have our hopes, we can have our intentions, we can have our desires, we can have our dreams. But in the following of our dreams, we must be open to the fact that our dreams might just change and that they're allowed to. And in fact, they just might be bigger and better than we ever could know. And that is the work of the Good Idea Fairy. The Good Idea Fairy has so many ideas in store for us that we could never even grasp. And so, this last part of the Perfectionist Diaries is here to serve as your companion to finding your own inner companion, to following the breadcrumbs, to not knowing what's next. There is a little part of us, this awakened, enlivened curiosity that turns on. And if we listen to that part of us, we will be rewarded. We might not know what happens when we do. And that's the point. The need for certainty keeps us away from our creativity. It keeps us away from our passion. It keeps us away from being true to ourselves in this world. It asks that we beg for answers when really living this way requires that we release the need to know and we embrace the journey of finding out. So, lastly, I want to share with you something that I am doing that is a direct reflection of the Perfectionist Diaries over the last 3 weeks. So, now I want to share with you the news that I've been holding back this entire time. I'm going across the country next week to meet the author of The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, and invite her to be on my podcast. She is doing a little gathering at this cute little bookstore, and I decided to fly out there to find a place to stay and to go while she has this writing session. It's for one of her latest books, and I'm so excited. When I first heard about this, I was really unsure if I was going to go because it's the week of Thanksgiving, and flying in the US during the week of Thanksgiving is really a huge risk. Not only that, but it was a last minute flight, so it was a little expensive. And then also, what if I go and she doesn't say yes, or I don't even get to talk to her? Like, what if, what if, what if, what if? But I know that one, she's 77 years old. This woman is not going to be around forever. Two, The Artist's Way is the book that has changed my life. And it is the work that has colored so much of the awakening of what I know I am meant to do and carry on in this world, and the creative work that I am meant to birth. It is all about the precipice of what happens when you listen to that creative inner voice within you. And so, who would I be to not go meet the person who wrote the book that really has inspired so much of a passion for creativity that I have on this podcast? Who would I be if I didn't go meet her? And who would I be if I sat here on this podcast every single week and told you guys to go do the thing and do it scared, and told you guys to listen to your good idea fairy and follow the breadcrumbs, and then had this opportunity to go meet someone who I really felt connected to and I didn't take it? Who would that make me? And it's really funny because last year when I quit my job and I went to Bali, I had to take a break from the podcast. I couldn't be on the podcast and essentially give you guys the rundown of what was happening and what was going on. I needed a big break away from the podcast, even though I was quitting my job in order to pursue my podcast as my full-time job. I needed space away from it, but I almost feel like this is another opportunity, another chance for me to take you guys along into a decision that I've made to do something a little risky, a little fun, a little following the breadcrumb, stay tuned and see what happens. And you actually get a front row seat because I don't need to take time away from the podcast. And because this is something that is a direct reflection of the work that I'm continuously doing. So I'm super excited. I am going to be creating a content series over Instagram and TikTok called Do It Scared, which is going to be all about this journey. I'm going to take you along for the ride, and I'm going to take you along to see if Julia Cameron says yes. Like, fingers crossed she says yes. But even if she doesn't say yes, even if she doesn't do podcasts, I just want to tell her how much her work has changed me. And also, I get to have a writing session with someone whose writing is so inspirational to me. And let me tell you, this wasn't the easiest decision to make just because the flight was not super ideal given the fact that it's the week of Thanksgiving. And I was like, am I even going to get back in time to spend Thanksgiving with my family? And I had to take the risk and be like, if I have to spend Thanksgiving in an airport this year, that might just be what I have to do in order to go and do this. And so I had all these fears. I was like, what if the flight gets delayed or it gets canceled because the government has been shut down? And this and that. Like, there are so many things that could go wrong, but also there are so many things that could go right. And I knew the second that I bought the ticket that the little spark within me was just on fire, that my good idea fairy was fed, she was nourished, she was happy. And that's the thing, when you make a decision that you just know is right for you, you know it's you following a breadcrumb, you know that it's going to bring you spontaneity and excitement and joy, and it's going to make you feel fulfilled with the knowing that you are a courageous being capable of creating their own destiny and you are a conscious co-creator in your life. It feels so good. You don't think about the fear anymore because you have now let the fear sit at the table, and then you've told it to leave, and you've allowed that space to be filled by your good idea fairy. And so you just feel so much better. You feel like you made the right decision. The second that you make a decision like that, all that fear leaves you. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're teetering on the edge about something because of the cost or because you don't know if it's the right time or there's all these excuses, but the first initial reaction in you was one of excitement, was one of joy, was one of absolute bliss, and your inner child was so excited, and the part of you that you might call the good idea fairy got really excited. If you are letting the logistical things stop you from doing something that makes your heart soar, then reevaluate. If you really want to do something and it's something that feels so right for you, nothing is going to stop you from doing it. And that's just that. If you are really committed to making sure that you live a life that is authentic and true to you, and you follow those breadcrumbs, nothing's going to stop you from following those breadcrumbs, okay? The money will be found. there are ways to make it work. There is always potential. There is always an opportunity. There is always a way to make something work if you want it to work and if you are leading with that joy and that excitement. And this is also an opportunity for me to offer you the last 10% off spot in my retreat with the coupon that is linked down below. TT Costa Rica 250. We're going to be hiking through waterfalls on horseback. We're going to be swimming. We're going to be in creativity and inner child breathwork meditation classes with each other, guided by me. We are going to be workshopping, connecting, creating, connecting to this creativity within us. All these things that I talk about on the podcast, we're going to actually be able to practice together. It's going to be so connected, so soulful, so wonderful. You can still use that coupon, $250 off of your ticket price until Thanksgiving. So you have this week. I know that this space is going to be so sacred. I know that it's going to be the most aligned individuals. I know that I am going to be so honored to guide these women. And if you're one of them, then oh my goodness, I can't wait to meet you. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned because next week I might have an update. Stay tuned on my Instagram and my TikTok. Stay tuned on my social media because I'll be taking you along for the journey there. Let me know what you want to hear next in the comments. Let me know what this inspired for you because I would love to continue just creating with your good idea fairy as well. If your good idea fairy is like, oh, I really think Vanessa should talk about this or that. Maybe it's connected to something I already have brewing in me, and maybe it will allow me to begin something new. So comment what you thought about this episode. It really, really helps the podcast, what you want me to talk about next. Make sure you rate the podcast on your preferred streaming platform. Make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or follow. And remember, if you spend your whole life trying to get your act together, you don't have a life, you have an act. So go and live your fucking life. I love you, and I'll see you next week.
You got to look for the redeeming feature. You got to look for things to appreciate. You got to find a reason to make it okay where you are. No, I've got to strive and struggle and try. That's what I've been taught. Growth and expansion is my quest. No, that's inevitable. Whether it comes easy or hard is the question.
The horrible truth is that it's an inside job. That if you're going to get that love and that respect that you've just that connect, that union starts inside.
To every experience of growth, there is an equal and an opposite. And that equal and an opposite is what drives you to that light. So you have to start inwards. You have to start first within yourself.